دایی یه فرصت خوب حالا پشت مدافع خداداد عزیزی توی دروازه گل گل برای ایران خداداد عزیزی باز هم روی زمین گشت سردار آزمون و توی دروازه سردار آزمون گل به نام آزمون و برای ایران
بزنه کریم انصاری گل توی دروازه کریم انصاری دروازه پرتغال باز شد
علی دایی صاحب توپ توی دروازه
گل اشتباه حرکت از کوچان نژاد فرصت برای کوچان نژاد توی دروازه گل برای ایران.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gol Bezan. My name is Sina. I'm joined by Arya Allahverdi and Arya N. Welcome to the podcast. How are you both doing?
Hi, Arya N.
I
forgot.
I forgot your surname.
Where's my family name?
Do you want to start again? You want to start again?
I'll start again, but I forgot your surname.
Nourizadeh.
Yeah. Arya, I think I have to differentiate actually before listening to the episode. I'm going to talk to Arya A and Arya N just to like make it quick. But Arya A, I know we had an interview with Allahyar Sayyadmanesh recently. So if you guys haven't listened to that episode, definitely do. It's a very good interview, very honest, and one that I definitely enjoyed listening to as a fan. So yeah, Arya, do you want to give quite a quick sort of summary and a preview of that?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was an interview that we actually probably a bit late. We've done it. We tried to get him on for a little while now. When he was at Hull City, we were planning on having an interview with him in person when he was in Hull City to do like a. I don't know if you remember, we were trying to do like a video with him. We had an idea that was kind of in the pipeline. Unfortunately, some issues of like money and costs just couldn't quite get over the line. And then he left Hull City, so that was just out the window. But now he's at Westerlo in Belgium. We obviously wanted to get him on. He's been in pretty good form for his club. And we had him on for the interview, and he was very honest, as you mentioned, with regards to national team and his time at Hull City. He was quite, quite honest in terms of how he felt like Ghalenoei's perceiving him as a national team player. He doesn't feel like Ghalenoei really quote unquote rates him, if you want to put it in that way. I've had people respond to this interview saying, maybe it was a bad time to put it out because obviously the squad list came out about 5-6 days later. I will just say the Legionnaires that are in the squad list that we'll speak about, they were contacted and sent flight tickets a few days before we recorded the interview. So in that respect, he already wasn't called up. So we actually I already knew that he wasn't going to be in the squad. So that's why I did the interview in that time. Otherwise, I would have done it afterwards. People are saying, because of what he said, he won't ever get called up. I don't think that's true. Personally, I still do think he will get called up, even by Ghalenoei, even if he has said what he said. I don't believe that's true. Now, whether that's going to damage his current position in the national team, maybe. But at the same time, if he felt like he had to say what he said, then he can say what he wants to say. He's an adult. I'm not going to filter him in any kind of way. He's a good friend of mine, as you guys know. I've been to his wedding. I know him quite well. But I'm not going to filter him just because he's my friend. If he wants to say what he has to say, he'll say it. And the only reason why I pressed him on it, like on the question regarding Ghalenoei, was because he felt quite strong about his belief in that, what he said. So about Ghalenoei not believing in him. So I felt he had to clarify, and he did. He clarified his reasoning, and he obviously respects the coach's decision. And he's not in the squad, so I can tell you again, it wasn't because of the interview, 100%, hand on heart. But he isn't in the squad. Hopefully, things can change going forward. But he's still in great form, so we never know.
Yeah, he's playing well in Belgium. I think what I really got from that interview was, apart from all the talk with Ghalenoei and everything, but what I got from it personally was he's just a young guy that just wants to get game time at the end of the day, and he wasn't getting it at Hull City after his injury, and he's moved around to get that game time. And I mean, from a fan's perspective, that's all we sort of want to see as well, is like him getting game time because he's a very talented player. Um, so yeah, it's just you want to see his development.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he was very young, playing for the youth national team, scoring goals against Germany at the U17 World Cup. Yeah, he started out very young. When he was at Esteghlal under Marcel Schaefer, not Marcel Schaefer, on Winfried Schaefer. He did really well, and he moved to Fenerbahce at the time. So he moved to Europe at a very young age, but I think he was about 16, 17 when he moved to Europe. So he has he has had to kind of build himself up kind of at an early age, similar to like a Saeed, for example, as a Wallahi. So it has been a tough kind of road for him with the injury that he had at Hull City, that kind of tough injury. He would have probably gone to the World Cup if he hadn't been injured. Um, and I think he would have been quite helpful actually at the World Cup because he was doing quite well, especially playing against an English team. Um, so yeah, but I think looking forward in his yeah, he's still young, he's 23 years old. He has there's no doubt in my mind between the age of 23 and when he turns 33 years old, for instance, he will play for the Iran national team at some point. Do you know what I mean? He isn't going to be dropped for the rest of his life from the national team. Let's be perfectly honest.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I want to move on to the squad list now because it was released a couple of days ago now. We want to go into the detail, previewing as well the North Korea and Kyrgyzstan game. So I guess like the first makes sense to start off with Allahyar in terms of the squad list. So he wasn't included. What does that say in terms of Ghalenoei's opinions and ambitions, or when it comes to these two games coming up? I'll stay with you, Arya.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is with Allahyar, and we have a lot of wingers in this squad. We have Mohabi, Ghaedi, Javanbakhsh, who just moved to Heerenveen, this week. We've got I think I mentioned Qoyzadeh as well. Qoyzadeh, who's just been in quite good form, just scored a goal today for like Poznan.
It's a good goal.
Yeah, good goal. We have some good players in that position, who I think are ahead of Allahyar. I don't think Allahyar would start. I think he would start.
Hmm.
I think Gaudi should be starting on the left wing, no doubt about that. I think for me, Mohebi should start in this squad. So both of them being naturally left wingers, I think Mohebi is probably more suited out of anybody else other than maybe Qoyzadeh and Javanbakhsh to play in that right wing role. So I think right wing is where he should be if Gaudi is going to play. So I think those two are ahead of everybody at the moment. But again, Qoyzadeh is in good form. Javanbakhsh is moving to Heerenveen, so hopefully his form regains a little bit. Um, is there anyone else I've missed out? Arya? Wingers? I think that's all he's called up, right?
Yeah, I think
Torabi hasn't been
that's
called up. That's maybe one to
yeah.
mention.
All right, yeah, Torabi hasn't been called up. Is he suspended? Is that right? Is he injured? I don't know.
I'm unaware. I don't know,
I've
but he hasn't
I've
been
not been
called
following.
up.
Yeah, I'm unaware of. But yeah, again, I don't think he would be a starter. So, um, yeah, I think I don't. It doesn't impact. To put it this way, to kind of wrap it up, the Allahyar talk. Allahyar not being called up does not impact the squad majorly, but it is what it is. Like,
Mm.
that's all I've got to say.
Mm. Let's talk about one of the wingers that you mentioned. So Aras Jahanbakhsh was clubless for I'm not sure even how many months it was, but it was for a long time. I think almost maybe half a year, maybe even longer. But yeah, after Feyenoord, he had talks with many clubs. He mentioned in Germany, Spain, I think Italy was one as well. He mentioned, but he and in the Middle East, of course. But he wants to stay in Europe. He's now signed with Heron in the Netherlands. manager Robin van Persie, which is pretty cool. He actually made his debut today. Played about 15 minutes. Came on as a substitute. So yeah, Arya N, let's go to you in terms of what do you think about this transfer?
Yeah, it's an interesting transfer because I remember you and I think Erfan as well. We were speaking about him potentially joining Genoa. I know there was like that whole debacle of like where is he gonna go, and it's funny to see him, still staying in the Netherlands. I tweeted us out earlier, and I still respect the fact that he wants to stay in Europe. I think most of our players should lead on from that example, but it's an interesting one because there's been, I don't know if it's official, maybe the other area can confirm this, but there's been like rumors where he had to stay in the Netherlands because he wants his citizenship and all
He,
that stuff.
I think he confirmed that in a
Yeah, he
Instagram
posted on
post.
Oh,
Instagram
okay.
or
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him. Hopefully he regains his form back, which is ultimately what matters for us Team Melli fans. I mean, we just hope he does well for his club, and that kind of transfers on to Team Melli itself because I think it's safe to say, I've been pretty vocal about it. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been great in the past few games for Iran. So yeah.
I mean, I'll add something here. Look, um, Javanbakhsh has every right to go where he wants to go. Like, if he wants to go to Philippines and play football, he can go to Philippines and play football, right? It's completely up to him. That's the first thing, right? Second thing, yes, great to see him staying in Europe because obviously from a footballing standpoint, it's a good place to stay, and obviously Netherlands is a good league. Now he got a lot of criticism, like a lot of criticism for being unemployed for the last few months. Rightly so, because he's been in the national team squad starting matches, and there's players like Allahyar, for example, we just mentioned, not getting even in the squad, not getting a sniff when they're employed. So from that side of things, I get the criticism that he's been receiving, and I was also I was rightfully criticizing him as well for that. But I will add that okay, if he's come out and he's had to put an Instagram post and say, the reason why I've done this is because I want to get my Dutch citizenship, then fair enough. Like, we have to respect that as well. Because if he plans on one day starting a family in Netherlands, and that's what he wants to do for the rest of his life, then we should respect that. We shouldn't be like bashing him now because he's been. But even so, if that is the reason, great. I'm happy for him. If he's going to get his Dutch passport, great. But even so, the criticism that he was getting called up really isn't his fault. It's really Ghalenoei's fault because Ghalenoei has been playing him, and I don't think he should have been called up personally. Now that he's in here and he's gonna start playing, cool, should be in the squad. But when he wasn't, he shouldn't have been called up. Same goes for Salman Kudus, by the way. I don't think those two should have been in the squad in that period that they were unemployed.
I can't really think of any players that have been without a club for that long. The only one that comes to mind is David De Gea after he left Man United. But it's like he's a goalkeeper and it's like super different. But that's the only one that comes to mind. But with this, he was just without a club for so long.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you mentioned that it's like there's other players that you could have brought in.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm agreeing with you.
100%.
Yeah. But I mean, David De Gea didn't get called up for Spain, right? So I mean, they've got like countless numbers of goalkeepers in that position, but we've got loads of wingers. I think wingers are actually probably our strongest position in the team. So he did enter the team. He was even the captain for the game. So I agree. I think it sends the wrong message. The good thing though is that he's signed for a club now. Good manager in terms of Robin van Persie, obviously a Premier League legend, and he got some minutes today, which I'm actually fairly surprised about. He hasn't played a game for like an actual league game for months, and he actually got some minutes today, which means that he has some sort of match fitness for Robin van Persie to even put
Yeah.
him on.
Well, I'm not doubting his professionalism because I'm sure he would have kept himself fit, no doubt about it. He would have been in great shape
It's
even
the
when he
match
wasn't.
fitness though. It's like
But it's
that
the
one you
match
can't.
fitness.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
also, as you mentioned, it's a bit of respect for your teammates. Like it's not his fault again. It's Galloway's fault that he was called up. But the fact he was given the captain's armband as well, I don't think that's fair. I don't like that personally.
That's what I was gonna touch upon.
Yeah.
Like Sina said, it just sends the wrong message. You don't. I can't even recall if has any national team ever done
It has happened before.
Yeah,
I'm sure it has happened before. It does happen, but I don't. Just because it happens doesn't mean it should happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like it. I wouldn't have called them up personally.
I mean, I think there were stages where like Cristiano Ronaldo was without a club for a few months in terms of like being a free agent, but it was never this long, you know, and he was still, you know, captaining Portugal, but it's nothing like this.
No. But yeah, end of the day, I'm happy for him. He's going to get his Dutch passport. You know, he's going to be more mentally in the right place now that he knows he's going to get that passport. He's going to be in his comfort zone with his agent living in Netherlands and everything. So I'm happy for him for that side of things. So hopefully now it's better going forward.
From Javanbakhsh, obviously we wish him the best of luck in his new club. You know, we'll be following him for sure and updating you guys if anything happens extra on that side. But let's move on with the whole squad list. So, Arya N, what do you think about the whole squad? Any names that jump out of you in terms of admissions or omissions?
I think it's one of the better squads he's had. To be honest with you, I'm finally, I'm glad to say that this guy being Ghalenoei has finally called up Sina Sadrzadeh. It's been long overdue. I mean, he's been fantastic in Russia. It's good to see him being called up. And for someone that really does raise my eyebrows again is Mahdi. Why is this guy still being called up? Like we say this every single time. Why is this guy being called up? There is no reason for him to get called up. Other than that, no. I mean, it's a pretty Ghalenoei-esque list. It's all the usual guys.
Arya, why do you think he shouldn't have been called up?
Who? Mahdi?
Yeah.
He's just not good enough. It's as simple as that.
But like in terms of in terms of the context of the national team, he's called up Osman Taremi, Sahar Khizan as the strikers. Is that right?
Yes.
So do you think there's a better fourth choice striker?
No, but you can add in some of the young guys in, put them in. Don't play them. But someone that adds some sort of value to the squad. Or we always go to the topics of dual nationals as well. Why not go for those guys?
The thing is, the problem is Ghalenoei clearly doesn't trust that many young players.
Yeah.
Clearly doesn't. Like, so he's gonna call up Moghalu whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Now, whether I don't agree that he shouldn't be called up personally. I think he should be called up. I don't think he's a great player, but I do think he should be called up because of the way Ghalenoei plays. If Ghalenoei didn't play the way he plays, or the way he wants his team to play or set up, then yeah, I don't think he should be called up. But because of the way Ghalenoei plays and the results he's been getting with the squad that he has, I don't think that he should drop Moghalu because ultimately, first of all, he's got wins, so we can't like try to pretend like he hasn't been winning games. He's been winning games for us, but at the same time, Moghalu provides something that a lot of the strikers won't provide, which is height and physicality. And I probably shouldn't say this, but he is the most technical footballer you'll ever see in your life. Like he has a good left foot strike on him. Like he'll take a free kick, he'll have a penalty shot. He'll get in a box, he'll put a header on target. But when it comes to like the basic movement of a striker, he's horrible at it. But like if you give him a football, he will score. So I think Ghalenoei requires that in his team. He needs a player who can just do that in the 80th minute, for instance. So I disagree. I think he should be in the squad, but I can see if a coach change happens in the next 3 or 4 years, I can't see Moghalu ever getting called up again because not a lot of coaches will want to play the way Ghalenoei plays.
I agree with you, but he barely. I mean, you said he comes on at the 80th minute, sure, but the only game where we've needed him in some sort of it would be maybe the Uzbekistan game where he
But
came on at
didn't
the
he
80.
nearly score last game, or did he not score? And
Was it against Qatar? Was it? I don't know. I don't know which game you're
I'm pretty
referring
sure
to.
he scored a goal, but it was disallowed or something, was it
It
not?
was. I think it was against Qatar, wasn't it?
It was one of the last two games. I didn't watch the last game because I was at work. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, like, but that's what I'm saying. So like he will put the ball in the back of the net in those kind of moments. So he's not a good kind of judge clutch player. You know, I'm not trying to say like he's a clutch footballer, but he gives Ghalenoei what he wants from a striker. There's nobody else who can do what he can do. That's true.
But I kind of agree with Arya Nourizadeh, to be honest, because like, are we trying to? I know this sounds like a stupid question, but like, are we trying to qualify for the World Cup, or are we actually trying to prepare for the World Cup? Because if we're trying to qualify for it, I think we don't need him. And if we're trying to prepare for it again, I don't think we need him. So if we're trying to prepare for it, which I think we are, we're in a position now, like it looks like we're going to comfortably qualify. I think we need to bring in some young players. But that goes to your point, Arya. He doesn't trust young players. So it's like, I'm scared that we're going to get to a point where, yeah, we've done well in qualification, all results on paper look good for us. But when we actually get to the World Cup and it's like, we're just here to spectate at the end of the day. We're not
Yeah,
here
I
to
mean,
actually try to get results.
yeah, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I'm trying to say this. I'm trying to say, first of all, Ghalenoei isn't going anywhere. So we have to accept that as a fan base. He is not going anywhere. He's got the results. I don't think they're going to sack him like they sacked Skocic. So they won't. He will be at the 2026 World Cup, most likely, right? 99.99%. So we have to base our opinions a little bit around him as a coach. We can't. We don't like Ghalenoei as a. Sorry, we don't like Moghalu as a player. I don't like him. I think he's rubbish, right? But we have to base our opinions around Ghalenoei because we know he's going to be at the World Cup. He is, no doubt about it. So, Moghalu fits his game style. Right? He does, no doubt. Yeah, that's the game style that's the perfect game style for Moghalu. So we need a striker like him on the bench if we're gonna have a coach like Ghalenoei on our bench. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's for your interpretation, but that I think that's the way to go. Unfortunately, for for me, it's unfortunate.
But
I guess
then,
oh yeah, go on,
yeah,
Arya.
but then if we're talking at the question of height and all that stuff, then just call up Zahirul Islam. He's even taller than Mohammed.
I was literally about to say that. I was literally about to
Yeah,
say that.
Right?
Or
I
Shahab
mean,
Zaidi, maybe even.
no, I
Yeah.
don't think Shahab's already, but I think Zahirul Islam. Um, yeah, it's a different topic. Unfortunately, I don't really, can't really go into that too much because of the kind of politics behind it. But I don't think he'll be called up. I just don't think he will. I just don't think he'll call up a Joe National. Unfortunately, it's so. You know what? I've kind of accepted Galloway a little bit. Like a little while ago, I was in this like thing of like, oh, like why is he not bringing Coven Iron Islam? Because he's got to bring out he's scoring goals. But I've just got to the point where I've accepted him as a coach, where it's like he isn't going to call him up. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, if well, we're here to like commentate on him as a manager. We can't just be like, oh yeah, like we've got to kind of accept that he's there. So let's try to think like him. Like we're there to sort of
Well,
critique his decisions as well, no?
yeah, you absolutely. I think you're right. I think that I think the problem is the format of the World Cup has changed. So Iran have almost certainly qualified for the World Cup. It was way too
Yeah.
early, by the
It's like
way.
95%
Yeah,
chance,
but
I think
we've
now.
qualified. We've qualified far too early. See, if we had qualified, if the World Cup was like 6 months away, it would have been a lot easier to kind of have our base our opinions because it's like 2 years away, right? It's like ah, we're kind of like we're kind of accepting our fate essentially in a way like 2 years in advance, which is like I don't know.
But surely
I,
that I don't understand that. That's better. Like if we've got 2 years to prepare with a new group of players, that's way better than 6 months. And like
no,
the pressure's off as well. That's the amazing
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you, Sina. I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to say it's like
He won't call up young players. I agree with you, but
I
I'm
just
saying he should.
I mean he should, But what I'm trying to say is, I don't think Ghalenoei is going to change as a man. Like, and that's what Indy's what he's been in charge for about 2 years now as well. I haven't seen a single change in him. I thought he was going to change at one point, but I haven't seen it. And especially after the Asian Cup, I actually thought after the Asian Cup he was going to, really revolutionize this team a little bit, but he hasn't done it. It's so because look, things like the performance of the Asian Cup, because of how bad we lost against Qatar, there should have been a change. Should have been big changes in the national team. And the fact that we haven't seen it all these many months, you were there, Sina. The fact we haven't seen it since then tells me that there's not going to be much difference or changes in 2 years' time.
At that press conference on the day we got knocked out of the Asian Cup, I as you said, I was there. What he said was, yeah, we need to rebuild, we need to move on some of the older players in the squad, and everyone thought that that's what that meant was we're bringing in younger players. That's usually what that means. That's the only real interpretation. What actually happened was Haj Safi went. Omid Rahimi said, I'm retired." He shouldn't have even been at that Asian Cup. That's a different question in itself. And honestly, that's it. Like, I don't really see any other changes. And then Cheshme's in the squad again, so it's like that's not even like I don't know. I don't actually know how old he is. I think he's only 28 to be honest. He looks a lot older. But yeah, there's a lot of the older players. Like it's just those two guys, honestly, that I would say. I can't really see anything else.
Cheshme's 31 years old.
He's 31. Okay.
Yeah.
He does look older than 31, though. I'll be honest.
What I'm trying to say is no, but that's a good point because he's brought back a player who was part of a squad where things went wrong, and he's just brought him back again. It's like, wait, like what are we doing?
So
like,
what sort of rebuilding is that? That's what I'm saying. Like,
well, Arya, let me ask you, right? You're younger than us. You're I don't know how old you are. You're what, 20, 22, 23, 22, right? So from your side of things, if you were a footballer, right? You're 22 years old. I'm 27, right? Sina, you're 26, right? You're 22 years old. Let's say I'm playing ahead of you, but I'm not playing well, right? I'm playing rubbish. I'm a right back. I'm not playing well, but I'm way more experienced than you, right? But then you break through, and you're playing really well, but you never get called up. Like Sahar Khizan, for instance. This is a good example of that, by the way. Sahar Khizan. How are you gonna feel? Like that's how I see it. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
it's not even it's even more than that though, Arya. It's not even like you're not playing well. It's also you're actively taking steps back in your career. With Osman, for instance, I know he played amazingly against Qatar, but he's actively taken a step back in his career going to the UAE. Salman Ghoddos as well, same thing. So it's like those two players have been playing well, so I'm not targeting them, but I'm saying a lot of these players are lacking the ambition, in my opinion. And when you have younger players who are actively trying to get into Europe and playing in Europe, I agree with you. It's demoralizing.
It is. It is. Javanbakhsh Hoseiny, I'm sure you've seen him play. Both of you, he's a great player. Why he's not been selected is crazy. To start, not just to get called up. He should be starting, in my opinion. He's a great player.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Yeah, I don't know. Go on, Arya. You've not been talking for a little bit.
No. I mean, I agree with you guys. It's, I mean, like, listen, I come from, I'm obviously, I live in Canada, right? And comparing both national teams, right, is like, in 2018, we've had most of these players, not most, but we've had some of these players at that 2018 World Cup. Same for the 2022 World Cup. And then I compared to a Canadian side, for instance, who has just recently just started being good. And the difference between both, I guess you can say, national teams is we're actually giving chances to younger players, or we're actually bringing in players from other countries, dual nationals and such. And what they're doing works. I mean, yes, it's CONCACAF, it's different, but why can't we try to at least replicate that, or at least try at the very least? It's frustrating to see that sort of stuff going on with Team Melli, and it looks like it'll never get fixed. That's how I see it, at least.
I mean, the thing is, like, with Ghalenoei's tenure, one of the things that he needed to do was bringing young players. That was like on the job title, right? Oh, sorry, on the job like description when you apply for the Iran job after the 2022 World Cup, right? The first thing should be bringing in young players. Not just bringing them in just to bring them in for the sake of bringing them in, but developing them so that we can use them in the next World Cup. That should have been one of the key job descriptions for Ghalenoei. And the truth is he hasn't done that. Now, he has brought young players in. He's called up Arshad Shakuri at 17 years old for absolutely no reason, by the way. He just brought him in. And that is one of the things that annoys me, is when you just call up players and then do nothing with them. That is a waste of time, in my opinion. A guy like Javanbakhsh Sayyadmanesh to get like what a total of like 5 minutes of football in the last like 10 games or whatever it is ridiculous. I mean, like, come on. Saharki's on scoring goals for fun in Russia. To have played like 0 games or whatever is bad, because at this moment in time, we have players who are now, because there was a time where people used to say, oh yeah, well, we can't bring in young players because they're not even playing that well, they're not even playing that much football, or they're not scoring that many goals. What's the point of bringing in young players if they're not going to do anything at club level? Yes, well, you're right, but when they actually are doing things at club level and then they're still not getting called up, well, then now we've got a problem. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, yes, you could argue young players just for the sake of young players is not right, correct. But then young players, for the sake of young players, when they're actually doing things and making good performances at club level and then still not playing them, that's ridiculous, in my opinion. That's bad. Especially when your job description literally was to bring in young players, then not doing it when they're in form is just disappointing.
Yeah, I think it sends a pretty negative message, even if you're playing well in Europe and you're challenging yourself, you're ambitious, and you still don't get called up. It's pretty bad. But in terms
Yeah.
of that job spec, as you said, the first thing I think after the World Cup would have been, okay, in 2 years' time, you now have the Asian Cup. You've got a pretty decent team. They didn't play badly at the World Cup. They had a few games where, I mean, they had like one game, I guess, that they should have probably won. But like overall, I think we could probably be fairly happy with the World Cup. But the Asian Cup was in 2 years. The teams aren't as strong as the World Cup. We should win that tournament. That didn't happen. So, okay, fine. You've got 2 years until the World Cup now. Now's the time to build, because the thing with Asian qualification is that it happens the earliest out of any other continent, which means like we've got the blessing of time on our side to develop these younger players. But if he's not using that opportunity now, he never will. So you're right, Arya. He's just, it's the way he is as a manager. It's just not going to change.
Well, I mean, the thing is, again, like, look, like, hold our hands up. He's got the results. He's qualified us, right? No problem. But we already knew that was going to happen. Bro, Gianni Infantino literally made the World Cup the easiest World Cup to qualify for. Literally, if you don't qualify for this World Cup, then you're really bad. Like, come on, like, how can you not qualify for the World Cup now? It's like the easiest thing in the world, bro. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I'm using this language because I'm trying to say how easy it is. It's just crazy if you don't qualify. So the qualification matches for me, like, we don't even have who's the toughest team in our group?
Uzbekistan.
Yeah,
Uzbekistan,
we don't
yeah.
even have Japan and South Korea in our group anymore. Like, the once upon a time, we were scared of playing South Korea. Now we don't even have them in this like
Yeah.
group anymore. Like what is the point of qualifying? Like, the qualification is like nothing now. Like, it's not even a question of like, can you qualify? Iran are going to qualify every single year, like, no doubt about it. So the point is, you didn't have to like, you really didn't have to make it that much of a task for yourself. I mean, you did, but not as much as compared to the time Kairos was in charge, the time Skochi was in charge, because they had it harder. They had South Korea, they had these tough teams, whereas we didn't really. So I don't really see that much in the results that he's getting. Great, getting wins, cool, but you've not developed this team. This team is not ready for a World Cup.
I think it's interesting you're bringing up that point because I look at Japan's group. They have both Australia and Saudi Arabia. And
yeah. I'm not trying to say like that won't happen. But,
yeah.
But like it's still easy to qualify for the World Cup.
Exactly. We've had it very easy for us in the past few years. I'd say. I think you're completely right, and we still managed to kind of disappoint ourselves at the end of it, which is it is what it is. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess let's wrap up the squad list now because I guess we've all had a bit of a rant. But yeah, I think we will probably win the next two games coming up. We'll preview them in a second very quickly. But just to wrap up the squad list, just I guess we haven't talked about Ghalenoei's form playing for club. So yeah, he scored a very nice goal today, as you said, Arya. So looks like he's secured his place pretty firmly. I don't know if he'll start or not. Ghalenoei always sort of picks his favorites over any sort of form. So I think he probably deserves a start, but I don't know whether he will get one. And as we mentioned, yeah, Sarkizan is in the squads. The only one that we didn't mention was Moharami. I think he's still injured, no?
No, he's not injured.
No, so he came back from injury. You're right. He came back from injury.
He did, but he wasn't in the squad today for his club. So he wasn't on the bench either. And obviously he's not he's not in the Champions League list. He
hasn't been registered.
So he can't play in Champions League. But he wasn't in the league match today on the bench either. So I don't know whether if he's re-injured himself or what's happened there. I hope he hasn't. I've not got any information regarding that. I hope he hasn't. But I really do want to see him back in the national team because if you remember in the Asian Cup, it may have been forgotten because it was so long ago now, but in the early rounds, he was great for us. He was doing so well, and I was actually a bit devastated that he got dropped. He got injured because I actually think if he had made it to the Qatar game, it could have been a difference because if you remember that goal that Afif scored, it was on his side. I think he was defending really well 1v1, in the World Cup, in the Asian Cup, sorry. I think he was a big miss for us in those last games. So I think we do need him back because he's a player who I think I can trust. I can't trust Hardani. I can't trust Yousefi too much as a right back. But I can trust Moharami.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hardani, actually, he's going to be out for a North Korea game because he got a red card. Yeah. And I've always said this. I firmly believe if Moharami didn't get injured in that Asian Cup game, again was against the UAE, if I'm not mistaken, I think we would have gone all the way. But I guess we'll never know.
Guess we'll never know. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's wrap up the squad list there. Let's talk about North Korea very, very quickly because we had an interview with a journalist that we'll talk about in a second as well. So yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on North Korea going into that game? The game, is it at home or is it being played I think it's in a neutral ground, isn't it?
Yeah, neutral.
It's in the UAE?
No, it's in
Laos.
Laos,
yeah.
Laos. Okay.
Yeah, it's in Laos.
Cool. Yeah,
it's not going to be in Pyongyang. I mean, come on.
No.
I'm
pretty sure we have played in Pyongyang before, though.
Yeah, but not now. Not now. But I'm pretty sure we have in the past. But yeah, I mean, it should be a pretty easy game. I think they are bottom of the group, if I'm not mistaken, or second from bottom. I'm no expert. We'll have Scott McIntyre on from the Asian game in a minute with Samson, but I think North Korea have actually done all right the last few months. Again, Scott will speak about their process. Their women's football has been like they've gone crazy. I don't know what's happening. From what I've heard, like they're making them train like for like 4 months straight, which is again not surprising. But the men's team actually haven't been that bad. If you look at the results they've had, I know they've not won that many games, but they drew 2-2 with Qatar quite recently. if I'm not mistaken, they drew 1-1 with the UAE, I
They
think.
they did, yeah.
That was away. That was away. And they also lost 2-1 to Jordan, but they drew 0-0 with Jordan again, finalists of the Asian Cup quite recently. They lost 1-0 to Uzbekistan. Again, it's not a bad result for them. Only conceding one goal against Uzbekistan, not a bad result. They lost to Kyrgyzstan in their last game. Kyrgyzstan, okay, they're not, fair enough. Like that's probably they probably should have been challenging them, but ultimately, like they haven't been terrible. Like the 1-1 draw with South Korea, um, a few months ago. Is that right? Maybe I'm wrong. No, that was last year. That was a few years ago. But they lost 1-0 to Japan. I think the next game got I think it got like postponed, and then they had to like take a 3-0 loss or whatever. But they haven't actually done too bad. So I wouldn't underestimate them. I really wouldn't. I think it's going to be a tough game.
Mm. But yeah, they are bottom of the group right now. And we are playing Kyrgyzstan, who are second from bottom. So I mean, these two games should be fairly comfortable. But yeah, we'll talk to Scott now from the Asian game. So yeah, we'll listen to him right now.
All right, thanks, gents. I'm here with Scott McIntyre, very esteemed and experienced Asian football journalist. He is joining me right now from Japan. Scott, thanks for joining us and making time. And what's up to date with your coverage right now?
Yeah, no, I'm doing a lot of various things. One of those is the Asian Game podcast and website that I do with Paul Williams and Michael Church, which is really good. I don't know if I should be outing myself talking about North Korea being based in Japan. They might revoke my visa if they hear such a thing. The relationship between these two countries is not the best, but yeah, it's good to have a chance to talk about Asian football, and yeah, and thanks so much. I think this might be the first time I've actually been on the pod, maybe, or maybe the second, maybe a while
I
ago. But
might
yeah,
have had
yeah,
you before. You're definitely a friend already of the podcast.
yeah, and I'm a regular listener as well. So I just want to say thanks for the work that you guys do. For supporting Iranian football and Asian football was a really valuable resource. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about this group, which is kind of delicately poised going into the kind of turn of these matches, and you've got a trip that I don't think Laos were ever in any kind of danger of actually making the World Cup, but here we are as the venue where Laos could well play a part in the fortunes of these two nations.
Well, on that topic, can you bring us up to speed on why this game is being played in Laos?
Well, why Laos? That's anyone's particular guess. I don't know. Maybe the political ideology is not that dissimilar from the People's Republic, but throughout the previous phase of qualification, Japan and North Korea, Korea DPR, as we're I guess officially supposed to call them, were drawn in the same group. There's obviously political differences between the two, and I think it would have been somewhere between unlikely and unfathomable that Japan would have actually gone to North Korea to play that game in there. And I should say this is a deep history on both sides of the divide. People were first forcibly brought from the Korean Peninsula to work in Japanese mines during the war, and there's a lot of history, both ways between two nations. North Korea allegedly abducting Japanese citizens via submarine off the Japanese coast, which, as far as abductions go, submarine is a fairly impressive method of doing such a thing. So yeah, so there's deep history. It was unlikely Japan were going to go there. North Korea were supposed to host the game, and then they came up with some kind of amazing excuse around some new strain of COVID or something or other that was spreading in Japan, and they couldn't risk that being let wild on the streets of Pyongyang. So they couldn't play that game there, and in the end, they had to actually end up forfeiting the game, and it was awarded as a whatever it is 2-0, 3-0 result to Japan, and as a result, they couldn't then play those matches. It's actually amazing given that they lost that game, and I think they ended up getting through by goal difference or something. So they could have actually copped, more than the 3-0 that they actually lost against with a forfeit if they had have actually played Japan. So maybe there's a precedent there for lesser nations to just take the forfeit instead of actually going and copying the hammering. So as a result, they couldn't play in Pyongyang, and now, of course, that spilt over to this current third round of qualification as well. So they needed to come up with a neutral venue. That for now, and I believe will be the whole way through. Is Laos. Really a kind of random thing politically. Like I said, they're probably not a million miles apart. But they've been getting decent, kind of curious turnouts in the country, and of course the advantage they have this time is they're playing the two matches back to back as well without having to move. I think you guys first, and then Uzbekistan a couple of days after that. So yeah, I mean they're not playing at home, but which is a shame in a way, because you see the footage and the images of games from Pyongyang, which I think the Kim Il Sung Stadium is one of, if not maybe outside of a few of the US college stadiums. I think it's one of the biggest venues anywhere in the world for any sport, and it's obviously, whatever reason, it's full every time. It genuinely does look like an amazing atmosphere. So maybe they've lost that advantage, but obviously now, I don't know if Iran have even played in Laos before. I doubt they have. So you come into a very unfamiliar situation, an unfamiliar country, and that of course plays into the hands and the advantage of Korea as well.
Yeah, now Korea DPR, by the way, they're not playing very well so far, qualifiers. In fact, in the table here, they currently sit last, just behind Kyrgyzstan. However, it's never per se an easy game, especially when you're playing maybe away from home, or I guess East Asia. It's technically a home game for them, and in particular with Iran's history with them. Iran is at least not in the last 18 years beaten them by more than one goal. They've had a tie or two, a draw of 0-0, and then one goal wins. But North Korea, as many in the area know, can be tricky. Why do you think that is sometimes? And just what through your coverage of North Korean players, men and women, what's a common trait that teams should be wary of?
Well, I'll give you a curious trait in a minute, which is I believe that they're possibly global trendsetters in this regard. But I think you're right in terms of the points that they've accrued. But maybe it's not much, but obviously the table is very close. And if you look at the games, they lost the first game 1-0 to Uzbekistan. They drew 2-2 with Qatar, the back-to-back Asian Cup champions, right? And they went a man down in that game as well. I think they copped a red card in the first half. They were 2-1 down. They came back to get the 2-2 draw. They drew 1-1 with the Emirates, and then they lost 1-0 to Kyrgyzstan with a kind of sloppy goal from a set piece, right? So they've been in every single game, and as you said, the results have been close with you guys, but the results have been close genuinely throughout the history. And of course, even looking back, in 2010, maybe nobody expected them to get to the World Cup as they did then. Certainly now, I think people are also not expecting anything, but it's worth putting everything in the bigger context that they don't have any players playing professionally. They have had in the past, and indeed a couple of the guys, I haven't seen the current squad, but likely in this current squad, one of which the striker Kang, who actually played in Italy and did really well, was actually signed, I think, for 6 days by Juventus before a briefing, but he was signed by Cagliari, played for Perugia on loan a couple of times, or a couple of seasons. But the issue that the Korean players, men and women, have got is that they can't play in Europe pretty much anymore because of the sanctions. So you can't get paid salaries because North Korean companies are banned everywhere in Europe. So it's limiting what they can do. But the success that they've had, I was in Colombia last month, the month before, covering the women's under-20 World Cup, which they won. They backed that up a couple of weeks ago in the Dominican Republic. They won the under-17 Women's World Cup, and they've had great success at senior women's level as well. And of course, they've qualified for the World Cup in South Africa in 2010. I think one of the advantages that they have is because the squads are domestically based, you can essentially almost have a national team in situ throughout the year. Of course, you're playing with clubs and playing games, but particularly I think with the youth teams and particularly at women's youth level, which is a kind of big thing for the country, the most successful nation ever in women's youth football, and it kind of brings prestige and attention to the country. I interviewed the coach down there in Colombia several times, and he basically said, if we want them for 6 months, we'll have them for 6 months, and we can go to foreign camps and we can play wherever we want. So you've got that cohesion, which basically no other national team has anywhere in the world. You know, you can, if you wanted to run a 1-2 month camp, you can do that. You can bring them in. And I think the other thing is that they spend a lot of time, like a lot of time, as youngsters working on technique. So if you look, again, the women's youth teams, the technical level is very, very good. And even this senior men's team now, which has a couple of young guys in the squad as well, a few young central defenders. There's a real balance of players who are good with a left foot, with a right foot, but they're all very, very technically proficient, which is an advantage. And they're incredibly fit as well. You'll see this in the match when you guys play. They don't let you breathe. I think that tactically it's a little bit of a throwback to some point in time. They previous to South Africa, they of course famously appeared in the World Cup in England in 1966, where they knocked off Italy and almost knocked off a Portugal team featuring Eusebio and all sorts of legends. Right? They had a striker at that time who was actually a dentist. I think he was known as a dentist. So you know, they've got history and pedigree. They produce technically good players, but one of the hallmarks for this team in particular is that they're unbelievably fit and they press you really hard. But they play in this old school 4-4-2, right? Two kind of blocks, somehow advanced wingers, two kind of central strikers, and get the balls in, which I think if they had a coach that played in a different way, I think that'd be a really, really dangerous team, because they do have the technical qualities, but off the ball, they'll work unbelievably hard and they won't allow you a single moment to rest. They'll be pressing you straight away. So if you can play through the press, you're going to open up a lot of opportunities, but the press is consistent and they can do it at a high level for 90 minutes. So they're very, very hard physically to play against. But one of the curious things at all levels, man, they did this at the 17s women's, they did it at the 20 women's, and they've done it throughout qualification. I think they did it twice in the last match against Kyrgyzstan, is they make first half substitutions like you've never seen. Like, I mean, like they're like they're somehow substitution hipsters, man, around the world. And when I was speaking to the coach in Colombia, he said, listen, you know, if the players are not at 90%, they're off. We're going to hook them. Like, and it doesn't matter. The star of the team, the third choice right back who's starting for some reason.
Men or women, off. Senior or youth.
Yeah, both. I'm pretty sure against Kyrgyzstan the last game, they did it twice. Two first. They've made, like, I think throughout this campaign, at least halftime substitutions, if not first half substitutions. So I've never seen a team do this, man. I've never seen it. But I like it. And particularly in the era of 5 substitutions, that actually kind of makes sense. And in a way, it's a psychological thing for the players, right? If you think, not up to scratch, 30, 25 minutes. Against Kyrgyzstan, I think the first one was like crazy early as well, man. But even at the under-20 World Cup, man, throughout the whole tournament, they were hooking, big players, 15, 20, 25. You've never seen anything like it. So they're a really unique team. They play tactically in this really old school kind of way, but they have very, very good technical qualities, very good physical qualities, and these hipster substitution coaches who are going to throw stuff at you that you've never seen before.
I assume you spoke to them through an interpreter then? The coach?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Sure. I wasn't. You never hardly know with Korean TPR. I've seen documentaries where they meet North Koreans and they speak like fluent German, fluent English. I don't know. I was just curious, but well, not only drawing Qatar, they also drew, I believe, in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
So that just goes to your point that they can still be very competitive, even if they aren't running up the table per se. And how you notice how they press very hard. The Iranian defense and midfield, for that matter, has been shown to when they're not completely focused, they lose the ball and leave gaps, perhaps for a counterattack. Do you think that's what North Korea will look to exploit? And do you think that for maybe not so much of talent per se, that they can maybe expose Iran and at some points during that Iran would have to chase back to?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not a counterattack in terms of ball progression down the pitch with 4 or 5 passes. It'll be very, very direct, and in a way that's what they want to do. I mean, whether it's in a counter or whether it's from a goal kick, I mean, they're going to go direct and they're going to go long. So this is when I say tactically, technically, if I may, I think they're not that dissimilar to Iran in terms of the pure technical qualities that they have. And again, this comes from an environment of of being raised in a system of football where you're in camp for a long time, and by that I mean a long time, longer than any other kids anywhere in the world. I think I'm right in saying have been in camp. So technically they're very, very, very good. And this is obviously an issue, but it's really bizarre to see a side that are technically so comfortable on the ball and in possession do everything in their power to not use those technical qualities that they have by playing direct, by playing long, and they've got the advantage actually for you guys is their best player, the left winger Ria, I believe, is suspended for this game actually, the number 13, the left winger. And the other thing is, I should say tactically as well, they never changed the team. It's They've changed, I think, once or twice because of substitutions, but throughout the 4 games, it's essentially been the same 4-4-2, the exact same players. And then you've just got your hipster kind of substitution business to deal with early in the first half. But they almost never change the formation. They never change the way they play tactically, and they never change the personnel. But you are lucky because the left winger, Riza, young guy, 2021, technically very good, tricky, and because they play this way, there's a lot of pressure on those wingers to be the kind of real difference makers. You know, you can play long diagonal balls from the back, you go to the wingers, and then you're hoping what you can do is win those 1-in-1 situations, get the crosses in, and like I said, if you've got a guy, who was playing Serie A football 4 or 5 years ago up front, you're always going to have, and we've got a veteran guy, Yongil Guan, who was top scorer at various youth levels, throughout the ages coming. Since he was in 15 or 16, he's been one of the kind of deadliest strikers in Asian football as well. So they do have guys who know how to put the ball in the back of the net. But as you said, the issue for Iran is you're going to be pressed. Not necessarily pressed high, so maybe it's not such an issue with the defensive situation, but certainly the central midfielders are going to have the central and the wide midfielders are going to have a lot of pressure applied on them. How comfortably you can play through that press is going to go a long way to determining the game, because if you can, you're going to get them in transition, and obviously you have the players up front to cause all sorts of havoc if you can break through that press and counter them. But if they can get through you, equally, then the pressure is on, because you're dealing not so much with players running at you directly, but crosses into the box, and that's a separate issue that Iran is going to have to deal with.
So that being said, then what scoreline would you expect from this matchup?
Well, I mean, as we've seen throughout history, as we've seen throughout this qualification campaign, they don't score many, North Korea, and they don't concede many either. And that's the advantage defensively, certainly, of having the same team, consistently. And obviously, like I said, in terms of the advantage of being able to tap into them at any point you want throughout the year as well. So they're going to be hard to break down. It's a really unfamiliar environment for Iran to have to go into. I don't know exactly how long they've been in Laos at this point, but it's a long time already. So they've been there preparing. You're bringing players in from Asia, from Europe, you're bringing players in here, there, and everywhere. You're probably going to get in, 2-3 days before, where they've been in there substantially longer than that. So there's a lot of factors playing into. I just want to stress the point that if North Korea were to win this, I don't think it's a seismic upset, to be honest, because they're unknown in many ways. They're at the bottom of the table, but the games have been very, very close. They have World Cup pedigree before. Twice at the World Cup. That's more than a lot of Asian nations can say, and indeed a long way back in history. So they're not they're not just some random nation that's flown on the scene recently, or is bringing in diaspora players from here, there, and everywhere. They're homegrown players who've had a lot of work and time put into them. They're technically very good. Tactically, yes, they have their issues, but if they were to beat Iran in a neutral environment, which is clearly playing to their advantage in Laos, I don't think it's such a big upset, to be totally honest.
Wow, and I mean, and let's not forget they could not play from 2020 through 2022 really because of COVID. So they really disappeared as if Korea DPR kind of federation couldn't disappear already. Yeah, they certainly did so. So it'll be an interesting match to say the least. But Scott, I really appreciate your expertise on that. Want to give you a shout so we can maybe find you online. Are you still active on Twitter then, or how?
Yeah, no, I have these accounts. I just lurk these days. But yeah, but you can always follow us, with the Asian game, and that would be great because yeah, like you guys, we're just trying to do what we can to help tell the stories of football across the continent, and yeah, great to be on.
Yeah, Asian Game Podcast. Scott McIntyre, thanks again, mate.
No worries.
Okay, nice. And then thank you, Scott, for that interview. The Kyrgyzstan very, very quickly. Again, I don't think we should underestimate any of these teams, honestly, but Kyrgyzstan, again, second from bottom. What are your thoughts on that game?
Our last game against Kyrgyzstan, how did that go? Does anyone remember?
Yeah, it went what I think we won, was it 1-0? We like barely won that game. I'm I'm
Yes.
I'm so afraid the same thing is gonna happen again.
Yeah,
I
it was one
like
nil.
like Sina just mentioned,
Yeah.
we should be winning these games comfortably. I think one thing I've learned with Team Melli in the past years is that the word comfortable just doesn't exist with this national team. We always have to go through something. So, and I've kind of just accepted that, and I really do hope we can get past these two sets comfortably. I don't want this to be one of those games where like we have to scrape off of an Osmoon like 90th minute header or something like that, if that kind of makes sense. Um, but yeah, I think Arya did a pretty good job of describing North Korea. They've been all right.
I mean, look, Kyrgyzstan. I mean, it's quite rare that I actually get to watch Team Millie games nowadays because of the job that I've got. But I did watch that game, that Kyrgyzstan game, and yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was at home first of all, so that it wasn't good that we only won 1-0. We should have quite comfortably beaten them. I think Taremi scored that day.
Yeah,
He
Taremi
did.
scored, I'm pretty
Yeah, he
sure.
did. He
Um,
did.
so yeah, but we should have won the game comfortably. It is what it is. I think 2 wins out of two are is expected in these two games. Obviously, naturally, we've not got much to speak about. We don't know a Kyrgyzstani player. We don't know a North Korean player. I mean, there was one player who played for Juventus a little while ago, but I don't know if he's still part of the squad.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Other than that, I don't know too much about this squad. So yeah, I would expect Iran to win. Having said that, I the realist in me, I also only really expect us to score 1 or 2 goals in these games. Because I don't think we're I don't think we're bad going forward. Actually, I think we create a lot of chances, but I just don't think we can finish our chances. I think
Yep.
our finishing has been really poor. Um, so I hope that changes.
Hmm. All right, cool. So moving on, we're gonna go to Erfan now, who's gonna be talking about, is it PGPL?
Yes, PGPL.
Yeah, it's talking about PGPL.
Okay, so Erfan here, back with the latest domestic football news. So we'll start with the PGPL, latest news on the Persian Gulf Pro League. So currently Sepahan sit top with 21 points, and Persepolis and Tractor are behind them with 20 points and 19 points each, although Persepolis and Tractor do both have a game in hand. Fulad are then next with 18 points. Çağdırmalı Erdogan surprisingly doing very well in their first season in the top flight. Although Esteghlal, a team you'd expect to be doing well by this point of the season, has actually been struggling. They currently sit 10th with only 11 points, and they have the worst defense in the whole league with 16 goals conceded in 10 games. So for Esteghlal, when Javad Nekunan was there, the team was looking very hopeless, and they were in a very dire situation. Sohrab Bakhtiar Zade came in for 2 games. He was their interim coach. They won one of the games. They lost the other. It wasn't looking very good for them. But ever since new head coach Pitso Mosimane came in, the South African head coach, he's a very big name over in Africa. He's won 3 African Champions League titles, 2 with Malamawi Sundowns of South Africa and 1 with Al Ahly of Egypt. And he has around 20 titles to his name, including one in Saudi Arabia as well. He got Al Ahly Saudi promoted back to the first division after they were relegated. And Pizzo is a very big name, and I think this is a good signing for Esteghlal. because one of the best things about Mosimane is that he trusts young players, and in the few games that we've already seen his team play, we've seen him use many younger players as opposed to some of the other PGPL managers. With the most recent one being 18-year-old Allahyar Sayyadmanesh, who scored in his first start in the PGPL. So he's a manager who likes to trust the youngsters a lot, and I think and I hope that this can be a start of younger players playing in the league, and that other managers follow as well. Because we all know how much of an old league you could say the PGPL is. Now, moving on to the top of the table, Sepahan, who actually sit top, have also parted ways with Jose Moraes after some bad performances, not only in the league but mostly in the AFC Champions League too, which we'll get onto that later. But Jose Moraes and his staff have all left Sepahan, and in his last 2 years at the club, the only thing he's really done is winning the cup. And in my opinion, if it was an Iranian manager, he would have been sacked a lot earlier. So Sepahan are currently without a coach, and they're looking to bring one before the league resumes after the international break. Persepolis, on the other hand, they had a good start. They got 5 wins in a row, but then a recent loss to Istiqlal Khuzestan in Ahvaz kind of slowed things down for them. Although they did win their last game against Golgohar in Sijan, but the performance wasn't as convincing as the previous wins. So Garrido's boys are looking a bit shaky, but like always, they are there and they are challenging for the title. But the team that I would say impressed me the most this season has to be Traktor, with the Dragan Skocic, former team Melli manager. You know, they had a lot of signings this season, but the one I want to mention the most is Hoseiny. I know he's not a new signing, but he has been by far there and I would say the league's best player. He's both the top scorer in the league and the top assister. Just phenomenal performances in all competitions for Traktor, and I think he's been vital in them playing well across all competitions. Also, they had some good foreign signings in the likes of Igor Potonski, who's from Croatia. He's been playing very well for them. Of course, Ricardo Alves, he's been there for 2 or 3 years now, just getting better and better every season. So Traktor have been very impressive, and I think they stand the chance to challenge for the league after a long, long time. So some other teams I want to talk about. Fulad have been doing very well with Yahya Gol Mohammadi. Last 2 seasons, they were actually battling relegation, especially last season, in which they didn't confirm the relegation until the last week. So they are back on the top of the table now, challenging for maybe an Asian spot. Yahya Gol Mohammadi has done very well with this team, and the team actually has a very good defense. We've seen Ali Nemeti even getting called up to Team Melli because of how good they've been. Malawan, who started the season very, very well, are currently sitting in 6th spot, and this is actually also still very good for them, but they had a very good start, so some people were maybe hoping for an Asian Champions League spot at the beginning of the season, but I would still say Malawan fans are happy with this. At the bottom of the league, though, we have Nassoji with 6 points and Havadar with 7. Both teams with a very bad start. Havadar have now been getting slightly better, but they still only have 1 win, and they have the worst attack in the whole league with only 4 goals scored in 10 games. But the only winless team still is Nassoji with the Sakat Elhami. They have gotten 4 losses and 10 draws in the first 4 losses and 6 draws in the first 10 games, and sit bottom with 6 points. So the situation is not looking good up there in Shomal. Now moving on to the Hasfi Cup round of 32 draw, which was recently held. So I'll just go through the ties real quick. Istiqlal will play against Mes Kerman, who are in the Azadegan League. Persepolis will also play against Mes Sungun, who are in the Azadegan. Traktor play Golgohar, and what I would say is probably the most exciting tie of the round. Fard Alborz will host Khaybar. Shanavar Sazyaqeshk will play against Mes Rafsanjan. Pars Junubi Jam will play against Sepahan. Shams Azaqazvin will play against Shahin Tehran. Esau Khuzestan will play against Paykan. Sanat Naft Abadan will play against Aluminium. Chowdhury Melli will play against Malavan. That's another PGPL tie there. Nasuji will play Mes Shahr Babak. Shahdari Noshar will play Shahdari Astara. Zobahan will play against Havadar. Behzad Kermanshah will play against Shahdari Bandar Abbas. Naft Bandar Abbas will play against Siyasa Tehran. And then finally we have a Fulad derby in Fulad Hormozgan versus Fulad Khuzestan. So these ties will take place between November 21 to November 24. And we'll find out who the last 16 teams are after this. So let's move on to the continental scene, to the Asian Champions League elite. So it's not been the best of starts with the Iranian teams. In their first 4 games each, so that's 8 games total, they've only gotten 1 win, which was Esteglal's matchday 3-0 win against Al Rafa. And Esteghlal currently sit 8th and Persepolis 9th. So there's 12 teams total. The top 8 advance to the round of 16. So Esteghlal have played against both Al Nasr and Al Hilal, so they kind of do have their harder games out of the way. And Persepolis, they still have to play against both these teams. So when you look at the games, Persepolis drew against both Pakhtakor and Al Rafa, which realistically are games they should be trying to win. So Esteghlal do look better, but we don't know. We don't know what can still happen. So yeah, Esteghlal will play against Pakhtakor next at home, although that's probably going to be played in Dubai. And then Persepolis will play against Al Rayyan in Qatar. Now, on the other Asian club competition, the AFC Champions League 2. So Group A, consists of Traktor Al-Wakra, Rafshan of Tajikistan, and Mohan Bagan, which has been considered withdrawn. So there's only 3 teams in this group, and Traktor have just been smashing it with every team. Al-Wakra, they won 3-0 against them in Doha. They won against Rafshan 3-1 away, 7-0 in the return leg in Qatar. So they're now 9 points in 3 games. They've already guaranteed qualification, and I think they've already topped the group. They've been by far the best team of the West region so far, and I don't think Traktor need to worry about anything when it comes to the group stages. They've already guaranteed the next round spot, and I think they just need a point to guarantee the top spot. And even if they lose their last game against Al Wakra, they still have 14 more goal difference than them. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that Traktor will top this group. Now, the other Iranian team in this competition is Sepahan. Sepahan are in Group C with Al Wahdat of Jordan, Sharjah of the UAE, and Istiklal of Tajikistan. Sepahan had a bad start. They lost their first game away to Al Wahdat 2-1, and then they won 4-0 against Istiklal. That was a good win. But then they lost 3-1 away to Sharjah of the UAE. Now, it was at this point where Sepahan fans were worried, because if they lost their next game to Sharjah, then it was over for them. Or even if they drew, you could say it was over for them, and they stood almost no chance of advancing to the next round. But they got a very good 3-1 win in the return game against Sharjah, and they're looking in pole position to qualify for the next round now. They do sit in 3rd place. However, their last 2 games are against Al Wahdat of Jordan at home, or in a neutral ground, but they should be winning that. And then their final game is against Istiklal away. And if they win these 2 games, then they will qualify for the next round. So yeah, that's it for the domestic football review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next time.
For talking about the PGPL, and yeah, I guess we're going to wrap up the podcast there. But before we do, we've got some fan questions.
Yeah, we've got some fan questions, kind of last minute there. Sorry for making it so late. I'll put a couple of them up just now. First one comes from Twitter. It's at Conscious Flesh. He's asking, given Scottish's results in the PGPL and the Asian Champions League, or just second Asian Champions League, I don't know how you would say that, the one tier below, essentially, could an argument be made that he was unjustly sacked from the national team? We kind of touched on it earlier, but I'll get your thoughts first, guys.
The Asian Europa League. I don't know. It's a
That's what
difficult.
it's a good name actually.
No, but Europa League is like Europe is like wouldn't work, but it's just a joke. Um, Skocic was sacked not because of the results. He was playing pretty poor football, but he didn't get sacked because of that. And he didn't get sacked because of the results, because the results on paper is still it was actually like pretty similar to what Ghalenoei is doing now. It's a lot of wins. He got sacked because the players turned against him. That's literally the only reason. The players turned against him. They didn't like playing for him. There was a big divide in the dressing room. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a massive thing on Instagram. Some players were for him, some players were against him. It was an absolute mess. And this was fairly close to the World Cup. I think it was like a matter of months before the World Cup. It was an absolute horror show. It's the worst thing you want to see going into a major tournament. So that's the reason why he was sacked. There was no other reason. I do not want him anywhere near the national team as a result, because the last thing we need is division. The one thing I guess Ghalenoei's done, I guess we have to give him a slight bit of credit, is there is more unity now than there was before. However, I mean, there is still some cracks there. I won't say it's a perfect team by any stretch, but I do not want Skocic anywhere near the team, even if he's like winning tournaments with Tractor. So that's my take, just because of the personality and the history that he has with this team. If for some reason the whole team changes, and again that won't happen, but if in a few years' time, maybe it'll be a different question. But for now, I do not want him anywhere near the team.
No. I don't think that's what he's asking here either. I don't think he will be. I don't think he'll ever get back in the national team picture. But I think, yeah, as you mentioned, and the reason why a lot of the players did, end of the day, go against Skocic was mainly because of the tactical side of thing. It wasn't a personal thing. I don't think anyone hated him. Like from I think more a lot of the players liked him as well. Like Kanoni, Noor, a lot of them actually did like him. The reason why they went against him was because, like, tactically, he didn't really give the team a clear idea as to what they want, as to what he wanted them to do. Like in training sessions, he would have them doing like 20 different tactics. And like as a national team coach, you've got to have a set plan, an A, B, and C, and then you go and play. But the problem was he wanted us to have like 10 different ideas, and like he was overloading the players of different things in training that really, I think, disrupted the national team's flow. Although we got results, we still played quite poorly. Like, let's not forget, we played really poorly in a lot of the Asian in Champions in the qualification matches.
Champions League.
Yeah, Champions League. The next question comes from at Amin 98 Muchacho. He asks why Allahyar, Gudarzi, and some young strikers, Gandipur, Azadi, Tahiri, are not getting nominated or called up, I suppose. Arya?
Ghandipur is one. I completely forgot about Ghandipur, actually. I mean, he's another example of a striker that I would have preferred him over Mohondo. He's actually on form, doing very well for Malavon. Yes, he's very raw, very, very young, but why not get some, 5-10 minutes against like a Kyrgyzstan side if we're winning the game, or something like that.
If I'm not mistaken, he's like about 180 centimeters, so I don't think that qualifies for for Ghalenoei's criteria. Unfortunately,
man.
you gotta be like 184 minimum.
Yeah, but Kasser Tahiri is another interesting one. I haven't heard of him. Like, does he even play for Rubin Kazan? I think he gets benched all the time, so it's kind of interesting to see what's going on with him. I haven't heard of his name in a very, very long time. Unfortunately,
He's part of their youth team now. He's not part of their first team anymore. On a good note, actually, the other guy Rostam, he scored for his team in Poland, Pogon, but their youth team actually just over the weekend. So he's doing all right. But yeah, Gudarzi, good left back, showed some good things over the last couple of years in the PGPL. He hasn't called up Jalali either. So I mean, I think his left backs in this squad are Milad Mahmadi and Omid Noor Afghan. So he's just gone with the experience. Really, he's not. I don't think he'll be calling up young players. The truth is, he isn't going to play that many young players. That's just the truth. Right, next question. It comes from Instagram. You can check if you want to give us questions on Instagram. We always put a story. There's a little button that has like the questions and the response thing. We got a question here. It says, one second, let me bring it up. Is there a non-footballing reason why Allahyar isn't called up? No, it's footballing reasons. It is what it is. I'm not going to go into politics too much about that. A question here that was by Fardeen J19. Next question is from Twitter again. At Matin125_. Given the number of younger attackers and midfielders in the team who are performing at a higher level in Europe, should we fully commit to a one-striker formation for the 2026 World Cup with someone like Hoseiny as a number 10? If yes, who should be the starting striker?
It's a good question. I think it's a really good question. I'd say no. Like Taremi and Osman are still our best strikers.
Yeah.
So like we have to sort of find a way to include them both. And if we are doing a sort of one striker, then I guess you shift Taremi to the wing, which it wouldn't be preferable to me, but it has happened before. So that would be my answer is no. But I wouldn't mind experimenting with that.
Yeah, we got another question by Ali Talakoub. He's asking whether we should drop Osman Taremi. No, Taremi is our striker. He should be starting. I can't see us succeeding without him at this moment in time.
I think he means whether you should. Yeah, actually, never mind.
No. Any combination of ways you want to put it, Taremi and Osman should be the starters. Whether they should be starting together or on their own is a different question. I think
I think he means. Though.
I think no. Well, this is a different question. Yeah, but Hoseiny behind Taremi is a good idea. But Sadr's scoring, so no. At the moment, no. I think Hoseiny can play in that kind of pivot as well. He has that ability to, so I think he's better off there. I think he's creative to play as a 10, but he's very good. You'd be limiting his other abilities. He's good defensively. He's a hard-working player, so I'd want to see him as a number 6 or an 8 as well at some point.
Cool. Is that all our questions, Arya? Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for sending in those questions, and we're going to wrap up the podcast there. Thank you so much for listening and watching to the very end. Very nice of you. If you have made it to the end, then definitely comment, I guess, what you think about the squad and if we should be playing younger players, and if so, who should we be calling up? And thank you so much for listening again. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Hi, my name is Allahyar Sayyadmanesh. I'm playing for West in Persian Pro League, and you're listening to Bezan podcast.